And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wonder Series Wednesday, your weekly time to wonder how you can be, do, and think differently, and how that can positively affect your overall health, wellness, and even better, your health and happiness. Um, the past few weeks, we have been talking about connection and communication and how that can really affect your life in a positive way or not so positive way. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Denise Stegall. I'm the CEO and curator here at Living Healthy List. You can find us at livinghealthylist.com or, of course, here on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So, I'm really excited to talk to our special guest today about connection and about connection in a very different way. We always think, connecting with how connecting with other people. But we're going to talk a little bit more about connecting with the most important person in your life, you. So, my guest today is certified clinical hypnotherapist, Mr. Norman Plotkin. I'm going to have Norman introduce himself and tell you more about his story, and then we'll go from there. So, Norman, hi, welcome.
Thanks, Denise. Great to be here. Appreciate the opportunity. I am indeed a certified clinical hypnotherapist. I had to, when they went to school for that, they talk about buying the symptoms. I had to buy the symptoms of being a clinical hypnotherapist. It's been a long, strange trip on my way here. I wasn't always a hypnotherapist. I didn't go to college right out of high school. I went to the Marine Corps, and then I got out of the Marine Corps. I worked in the oil fields and a rock plant like Fred Flintstone, making little rocks out of big rocks. And I was a construction lineman building cable TV. And then my brother was killed in a car accident. He was pre-med. He was 2 years younger than me. He tried really hard. I never had to try anything. I was cursed with being kind of smart, so I winged it at a high level my whole life. But so it really made me gather my thoughts and realize that we're not invincible. And I moved in with my mom. I started college, and I knocked out my associate degree in a year and a half, and then the bachelor's degree in another year and a half. So I finished in 3 when most people are taking 5 or 6.
Yeah.
I did speech and debate and student government, and transferred to Sac State here in California's capital. And within the first semester, I had an internship, a paid internship in the state assembly. I was hired out of the internship to be a clerk. I was a clerk for several years, and then I became a consultant, and then a committee consultant. I ran political campaigns. I wrote the analyses for the committees on health and insurance. Then I went out and I was a lobbyist for the California Medical Association, the CMA. I represented the 30,000 physicians in California, and I did that for several years. And then I struck out on my own and hung a shingle, as they say. And I had my own lobbying firm. I represented automotive, energy, and petroleum companies. Kind of the underdog. I represented small oil against big oil, and the automotive aftermarket against the big car companies, and the energy service providers against the monopoly utilities. But pretty established industries, and I did quite well for myself for a number of years. And I love the public policy. I love the strategy, but the politics and money, it's ugly. It's dirty. And I got sick. Interestingly, I had papillary carcinoma, which is thyroid cancer, and it was in the throat chakra, our voice in the world, our authentic voice. I didn't have one. I spoke for others, and I wasn't allowed to have an opinion because it would bear on my ability to represent. So no one ever knew what I thought. I could take either side of any question and argue it like a Roman sophist, and that was 2011. I had radical thyroidectomy and lymph node resection. I had 2 rounds of radiation, and it's never just the cancer. My life changed as I knew it. My marriage didn't survive this. My ex-wife didn't handle it well. It was just there were complications, and all of the things I thought made me, all of the material things, the Porsches that I raced on the racetrack and the big 4,000 square foot house, suddenly didn't seem so important. And I embarked upon a spiritual journey that's been 10 years in the making. And I was divinely guided. Coaches and guides began to show up. Wayne Dyer, Carolyn Meese, Deepak Chopra, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden. There's a long list of them. I've read their books. I immersed myself in opening my mind and my spirit, and I embraced surrender. Yeah.
I think that's a big part of everything that we do. That's a very good point. So definitely let's continue from that point. So surrender.
Yeah. So there's magic in surrender. I white knuckled. I'm just going to steer and control everything. Don't like to be a passenger, and the car get a little sketchy on the airplane because I'm not flying it. So I just surrendered, and I allowed. I got really small, just kind of in terms of my footprint, and I learned. When I was in the middle of it, when I was like, when the first diagnosed, I'm like, I'm going to fight this. I knew doctors. I did a bunch of research and whatnot, and I'm going to get back to normal. I didn't realize normal is what made me sick. I was drinking 3-4 martinis multiple nights per week, eating rich food. It wasn't a healthy
Not
lifestyle.
sleeping, and that's a big part of all of it. All both of the things that you mentioned, and not sleeping really causes inflammation in your body. And that, of course, we know is really the root of all disease, which is what you were experiencing.
Yeah, dis-ease. And there was a little bit of stress. And so, I moved to Los Angeles, and I was trying to figure out what to do. I was coaching, I took a job as the executive director of a trade association, but it was just more of the same. It was, and I did that for a year, and then they didn't renew my contract because it just wasn't right. And so I actually started to lean on their ethical issues, and they didn't like that. So anyway, I was divinely guided in meditation to there's a nationally accredited College of Hypnotherapy in Los Angeles. But you know what? I had a friend when I was in the middle of that whole malaise. When the cancer, I had a radical thyroidectomy, lymph node resection, and then a round of radiation. And then I went back to normal. I was drinking and doing all this stuff and everything. I didn't realize what made me sick. And then it came back, and I had to have another round of radiation. And that's when I knew fear for the first time. I was fearless. I didn't know fear. And I knew fear for the first time. And I began to be fearful that I was going to lose all the things that made me that I thought. And so I had a friend who had gotten out of politics, and she opened a yoga studio, and she took me through therapeutic yoga for cancer. She taught me how to meditate. My overactive, monkey mind was just out of control.
It doesn't stop. It kind of talks to you all the time.
Oh yeah. That mental chatter of the that inner part of our brain, and so I learned to meditate. I learned Ayurveda and Ayurvedic principles in my dosha, which is pitta, fire, and so
Me too.
Drinking is like throwing gasoline on a pit of fire, you know what I mean? And so I just learned about what to eat and what not to eat and what to stay away from, and what my constitution is. And that meditation took me deep. Prayer is when we talk to God or Allah or Yahweh or whoever, and meditation is when we receive the response, whether it's from the divine or our higher self. So meditation, being quiet and still, is super important. We get information. And so
that's one of the hardest things for most of us in this day and age, even with, the craziness of this past year, where we've had a lot of time at home and maybe more time than we wanted to with our own thoughts. We really don't spend time with our own thoughts. We fill it with television and YouTube and, things that really don't help us.
Yeah, actually they take you in the wrong direction. And, I, as a hypnotherapist, I see a lot of people for sleep stuff, and I, ditch the electronics, don't eat after 7. There's some things, and it just, it's really hard because we're in this 24/7 cycle of, and being quiet and still is very, very therapeutic. And, so many people, I learned this from Carolyn Meese in her book, Anatomy of the Spirit. They send up these petition prayers. God, if you just get me out of this one, I promise I'll be different.
Mm-hmm.
And God says, well, where were you yesterday? Did you show up for me? And so what she encourages people to do is every day at 6 o'clock or every morning at 8, light a candle, show up for yourself and God, whatever your notion of the divine is. I mean, I'm very open to allow for all people have a pathway to the divine. And so whatever your notion of the divine is, sit and be still with the divine that basically resides within you. There's not some white-haired guy up in the sky. It's God is love, and love is God, and it resides in your heart space. And love is your birthright, and its opposite is fear. And you can't be in love and fear at the same time. So if you have love in your heart space, it gives rise to all positive emotions. And if you have fear in your heart space, it gives rise to all negative emotions. And so when you think about communicating and connecting, what I coach every client, whether someone comes in for a consultation, whether they hire me or not, I give them this. And it's right out of the Course in Miracles. I didn't make this up. I share this with everyone. Love is your birthright. I want you to pick a picture, an icon, or an image that says to you, love. Mm-hmm. Immediately conjures the notion of love. Have that in your hip pocket and bring it into your heart space 100 times per day. And soon it will only be 92, and then 83, and then 76, and then 64. And pretty soon you find yourself with love in your heart space at all times. And that makes you a good communicator. It makes you a good listener. And it connects you with all of your fellow brothers and sister human beings. Mm-hmm. You see, we live in a dual world. Of course, we need to understand hate to know love. And of course, good, bad. It's a dual world. But the goal is to push past duality, to know love for love's sake, mm-hmm. and to realize that God lives within you. And you, and you, and you, and you, and you. And we're all connected. If you're walking down the street and say, that's a goofy shirt, or get a haircut, bam! It might be immediate, it might be in an hour, it might be next week, but you're going to pay for that because that's you. Mm-hmm. And you're them. And we got to love all of each other. And anyone, there's so much divisiveness in the name of justice or equality.
Give it a name, right?
It's so sad to see. And by the way, there's mass hypnosis going on right now. There are 3 things needed for a hypnotic modality: authority.
Okay.
A doctrine or a paradigm.
Okay.
And you have to feel something. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you see my certificates and my degrees on the wall. That's the authority. The doctrine or paradigm is hypnotherapy. Mm-hmm. And do you feel something? Most people are exceedingly relaxed when they come and sit in my chair. But let's look at some that aren't so obvious.
Okay. Like what? Lab
coat and stethoscope. Mm-hmm. Medical books, medical school. Do you feel something when you go to the doctor? Not a good place to have your blood pressure taken. You could get good news. You could get bad news. You wait. You can be angry for the wait in the waiting room, or you can be relieved that you got some test results. So you feel something. That is hypnosis, guys. Okay. How about this?
Okay. I'm intrigued by that concept. Okay. I'm going to let you continue, please.
Okay. The white collar, or a robe, or a frock, or a skull cap, or the good book, whether it's the Torah, the Quran, the Bible, or the Bhagavad Gita. That's the doctrine or paradigm. And do you feel something in church or mosque or temple?
Absolutely.
People sing, dance.
People do. Mm-hmm.
That's hypnosis. How about this? So when I say people are in hypnosis right now, doctors Fauci and Birx, epidemiology and virology. Do you feel something when you see death counts rising on the television, 24/7 news cycle? Mm-hmm. This is mass hypnosis. And it's triggering a lot of fear. A lot of old traumas are coming up. I'm seeing a lot of people who've been triggered by our current situation. So it's important to understand these things. television
Mm.
is hypnosis.
It
They
is.
the,
Mhm.
the number of cycles. Have you ever taken a picture of your television? There's these little lines. It's imperceptible to our normal perception. But if you take a picture of it, so there's number of frames and there's stuff that's anyway. And when you're in a fear state, it triggers fight or flight, and you become highly suggestible. That's what I do. I trigger fight or flight to put people into hypnosis, and so there's a lot of people walking around in hypnosis right now.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question about that, but I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
and only because I want to make sure that we get this information to people.
Mhm.
You mentioned two books. One was the Course in Miracles, and there was another one that you mentioned that I would think people really would like to.
Yeah, Course in Miracles is a 3-volume set by some psychologists who weren't afraid to get spiritual, and it's a very large volume. But I gave you the Reader's Digest version.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a shorter one too, like a kind of crib notes for A Course in
Yeah,
Miracles.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
a good place to start. Also,
yeah. And then the other is Carolyn Meese, MYSS, Anatomy of the Spirit.
thank you.
And I'm going to give you 2 more because these are books that changed my life. Wayne Dyer's Power of Intention.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first one that just lit me on fire. I got to see him in 2015 at a Hay House conference. It was amazing. He was going to speak for an hour. At 3 hours, he was still going and nobody left.
I'm sure.
I saw Carolyn Meese there also, and I saw a host of others. Anyway, Wayne Dyer, Power of Intention, Carolyn Meese, Anatomy of the Spirit, Deepak Chopra, Quantum Healing.
Mm-hmm.
There's more, but those were the seminal books that just got me on course.
I think it's really important because your situation is not so different from other people's situations. It was unique to you. And, each person, we all have our own life that we're living, our path that we're taking. But I think it's important for people to realize that even though they're different, they're so similar. And if you can get on a good, positive path.
Denise, that's a very important point. I've seen thousands. I've reached the Gladwell says 10,000 hours is mastery. I've exceeded that. And here's the thing: when people come in, my strength as a hypnotherapist is counseling and interviewing. I listened. The same thing that made me a super good analyst and for the legislature and politicians ask me how to vote on bills makes me a really, really good hypnotherapist. And so what I do is I do a history right away, back to the childhood, and I listen. And I ask questions, and patterns begin to emerge. It's never what they come in for. It's usually some unresolved issue from childhood. And I pinpoint it, and I help them get relief from it. I can't change what's happened, but I can help you change how you feel about it. And suddenly the thing they came in for falls away because we addressed this repressed emotion from childhood. And they're like, well, why didn't I see it? I'm like, you're too close. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I hate to break it to you, but you're human. and there are
Oh, Norman, I just lost you. You went silent on me. Okay, well, we obviously have lost connection here with Norman, so I'm gonna see if I can get him to reconnect with us because I'm really excited to ask a little bit more about hypnotherapy and how that really works, and who's a perfect candidate. Which I think, just based on what we've learned so far, we know who's a perfect candidate. All of us. So, everybody, what are your questions when it comes to hypnotherapy? Is it something that you've ever considered? Is it something that you even really understand or know about? I think it's exciting to know that there are so many different experiences that people have that can help us to grow and to learn and to truly to live that healthy, happy lifestyle that we're dreaming of. Sometimes it's just a matter of thinking outside of the box, and I think on this one, hypnotherapy is definitely thinking outside the box. And that's what we want for you to do. That's one of the reasons why we are here, why I'm here every week on the Wonder series, to help you to think differently, to help you be different, and really to help you see things differently in order to help you live that healthy, happy lifestyle that that you desire. I'm going to hold on for a few more minutes. Hopefully Norman will be able to join us again. But I wanted to mention, and I'll put this in the notes. I'll put this, make sure we have this on in Facebook and on YouTube in the show notes. The 4 different books that Norman mentioned, I think they're absolutely fabulous. I do have, and I did mention this, A Course in Miracles. I do have the crib notes because it is intense, and I think it's something that is essential if that's the road that you want to go to. But I think more importantly, how do you know you want to go down that road? So I really like the idea of the shorter version. So we'll make sure that we have those there. I'm just going to look over here to see if I might be able to find Norman someplace else. Let's see what happened here. He and I have been connecting on LinkedIn. And so perhaps he's over there asking a question. Nope. Okay. Well, I'm just going to continue to see what we can do here. Hopefully he will be able to join us again. If not, we'll definitely reconnect and jump back on here live. Anybody, let's see if we have anybody in the chat or in the comments. Let's see, we'll go to Facebook real quick and see who's popping on. Hopefully you guys are taking, watching these every week. If you don't catch us live, we're here every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. And again, the whole point is to help you to be, do, have, and think outside of the box. I think that's really a great way to really take a snapshot of where you are in life and decide, is this really what, is it what you want? Are you living the life you want? Are you happy? Do you have all the things that you want to have? And if not, it's time to step back and do a little bit of reevaluating. Try to figure out, what is it that I want? And take those steps one by one in order to get closer. I know we were about to talk a little bit about, what we were saying about, everybody has, their situation, their circumstances. And I think so often we really get lost in our circumstances. We blame our circumstances. Norman was just talking about somebody who came in for one thing, and it turns out that there's something in their childhood that was really that was affecting the rest of their life. Those are things that, as he says, you can't change that, but you can change the way you think about it, and you can change the way you act moving forward. So let's see. I am still going to give Norman another minute or two. Hopefully we can find him, or he can find us again. Here he is. He's back. There he is.
So sorry.
That's okay. I was just chatting. We were talking about the books and all the things we need to do. We were just saying about, you and I were talking about, circumstances. People get kind of caught in their circumstances, and not that you can change that circumstance, but you can certainly help people to think differently about those circumstances.
Well, that's right. Change is hard. We have I'm on my cell phone now, so it's a little bit of different here, but we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts every day, and 90% of them are the same as they were yesterday. And so it usually takes an illness, a breakup, a job loss, or some other tragedy to shock us into change. And here's what's going on. So the conscious mind, reason, logic, analysis, decision-making, and willpower, we believe is in control. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. 95% of our mind power is in our subconscious mind, and it's our programming, and it was established from the time we were born until we were 8. And if the input from our 5 senses does not comport with our experience, it will be rejected, and the conscious mind will come up with a rationalization. For example, you're not born liking cigarettes, but somewhere along the line, your programming made it okay. And despite the fact that the Surgeon General warning on the side of the package says it's going to kill you if you If you ingest these things, you keep puffing away.
Mm-hmm.
And the conscious mind rationalizes, well, Aunt Sally smoked until she was 90, 2 packs a day. Right? I was going to die anyway. So, you know what I mean? So, the conscious mind will deceive you, and it will come up with a rationalization. So, that quiet stillness, that ability to use our two ears instead of our one mouth and listen, is the thing that helps us make change absent some tragic event. And, or, of course, most people come to me as a last resort, but hypnotherapy is a powerful. The reason I went into this instead of psychology, like I saw the damage of chemical therapy. My ex-wife was on pills, drinking. It just like changed her whole personality. They gave me pills. The side of the box said, "You may have thoughts of suicide." I'm like, "Doc, I ain't taking this.
Ooh.
I'm fighting for my life. I don't want to take something that makes me want to kill myself. Are you kidding? What's wrong with you?" So, this, hypnotherapy is an organic, non-invasive, non-chemical modality. It's ancient. The indigenous medicine people, men and women, shaman. There's 1,000 names for them, and they all had similar techniques. They would drum you or sing you into a trance. They did surgeries. I do pre and post surgery hypnotherapy, preparing to trust your medical team and visualizing your body cooperating with the surgery. Outcomes are significantly better if you prepare your mind for it.
I think that's a good point. That really is a good point. Your mind really does affect so many more things in that you think are random.
And nothing's random.
Okay, so I have a question about your first experience with hypnotherapy, because obviously you didn't just wake up and say, "Hey, I'm going to be a hypnotherapist." What was your first experience?
Well, actually, I woke up one day. So here's how I was led. I'd never been hypnotized, and I joined the school. I knew the power of the subconscious mind. I'd read Joseph Murphy. I believed that I heard the message of my cancer and moved through it and used it as a signal to change my life. So that's the power of the subconscious mind. I'd never gone and seen a hypnotherapist. So here's what happened. So I told you I was trying to figure out what to do. I was looking at coaching programs, and there was this husband-wife team in New Hampshire, psychologists, and they ran a coaching program, and they said, here's what's different with our coaching program. You add in hypnosis, and it helps people, because if people think you're doing something for them, they're more likely to do it. And they told the story of this marketing campaign where there was a typo. Like, okay, the copy for the marketing campaign was for this music, and it was put music back in your life, and they added an S inadvertently, puts music back in your life. And so when people believed it was going to be done for them, puts music, instead of having to do it themselves, it was wildly successful. And so the problem was, this was a 7-day course in New Hampshire, and I was in California, and I wasn't going to New Hampshire, and I wasn't going to take a 7-day course. So I went to a nationally accredited college of hypnotherapy. I had known someone through a mutual friend, had gone there. We had dinner. I asked her about her experience. I went in, took the interview, signed up the next day. And I never looked back. It was an 18-month rigorous training with residency and internship, and was really a powerful experience. Changed my life. And now I'm changing the lives of others. And I'll tell you, you can read Eckhart Tolle, Awakening to Your Essential Purpose, 100 times and still not know why you're here.
Oh no, we're frozen again. It's always awkward when you're live. But Norman, if you can hear me, see what you can do to pop back. There, he's refreshing. There we go. The joys of being live on the internet.
So you know what happened? Am I there? Am I back?
You are. You're back.
Well, the cell phone tried to pick up the Wi-Fi, which is no internet secured, So anyway, one more step. I went into settings. I turned off Wi-Fi, so it's cellular only. And we won't. I'm so sorry. You know what I mean? At least
These things happen. You know what? These things happen. The whole point, we're live. We're trying to. We're showing people. We're being authentic. This is who we are.
Yeah.
This is life. Things happen in life.
Yeah.
And to kind of roll with the punches.
Yeah. How about my recovery skills? Right. So
really good. I'm impressed. Okay, so I'm really fascinated that you had not experienced hypnotherapy before you took the 18-month program and for your certification. That really sounds incredible, because I think what's really important for people to know, it's important for people to know that you do have this extended experience, because so often I think in health and wellness, we start working with a coach or a consultant, whoever it might be, who kind of dabbles. And this is something really specific and unique. So I think it is important that people understand that this isn't just like you said, the 7-day course. This is really a real in-depth program that you went through. And I think because of that, that really elevates you to a level that people can understand. You know what? He's an expert. And I really do appreciate that, because I agree that those are the things that are really important. You can have a ton of certifications, but if they're just, a 7-day program here, a 10-day program there, they need to hold their weight, truly.
Yeah. Well, I operated at a very high level as a lobbyist. I moved among people who were very talented, and it had to be substantive. It had to be objective and substantive. Like, it had to pass muster with me. I wouldn't have wasted my time with it otherwise. And that's why this school, HMI, they have distant learning, but I was a local student, and it was amazing. And of course, so you asked when was my first. So when you get past 101, which is the first module, and get it as a student at 201, you get to pick a mentor who's an instructor. I chose for my mentor one of the instructors, so he took me through hypnotherapy for cancer, and I studied under him there. And he's also the American Hypnotherapy Association president. And oh, by the way, he went to Harvard Law School and was in the same class as Barack Obama. So
smart guy.
So yeah, smart guy. And he had been on a cruise ship and was introduced to hypnosis, and the rest is history for him too, right? So anyway, he was my mentor. You see why I had to choose this path of substance. And honestly, I look back and I think some of the young people who went through school with me are very, very smart. Their hearts are in the right place, but without the breadth of experience that I had, like you know what I mean? It's like I was drawn here, and this was a very substantive experience. But I wonder if I would have gotten as much out of it had I not had the breadth of experience in life. I mean, I negotiated across the table, $100 million deals, and very important people. And I had to, and they had to, stand up and deliver the speech that I wrote for them. You know what I mean? So it had to pass the BS meter, right?
Well, I really appreciate that, because one of the things that we really pride ourselves at Living Healthy List is honest, reliable, and unbiased. And so my husband is a kidney pancreas transplant surgeon and immunologist at Mayo Clinic. So we really focus on truth, honesty, and the science behind what we're talking about. And everything that you do, there's science behind it. There's research behind it. And I think that's really, really important for people to understand.
So glad you brought that up, Denise. So in the old days, and I cover this in my book, my second book, Mastermind, Master Life, where there's so many misconceptions about hypnosis. I don't make anybody cluck like a chicken or bark like a dog. Okay. So those people are hypnotizing people, but it's for entertainment. So I take very seriously what it is I do. I do medical hypnosis. I've lifted fibromyalgia. Lots of different things. So in the old days, it was anecdotal. the evidence-based community said, well, it has more to do with the anecdotes of the person who believes that they were changed, but it's likely to have been the personality of the hypnotist that really, made the change. Can you prove it? Can we measure it? Can we repeat it? And so they thought it was anecdotal and highly subjective. Well, guess what? Now we have functional MRIs and other measurement devices. And Dr. David Spiegel at Stanford and the Human Givens Project in the UK and others, now they're measuring the prefrontal cortex and the what I mean. So if I can, can I just read to you a little bit, just a passage about what's going on in hypnosis?
Sure, please do.
Yeah. So again, Dr. David Spiegel at Stanford, he says, hypnotherapy is the ultimate therapeutic partnership, a relationship that forms between a patient and a clinician, and that empowers the patient to take ownership over their own healing. That was my first book, Take Charge of Your Cancer. And so some of Spiegel's recent research using functional MRI and other measurement devices has demonstrated a drop in activity in the dorsal anterior cingulate, part of the salience network of the brain, a context decoder, or in layperson terms, a part of the brain that alerts you to what you should pay attention to and what you can ignore. This part of the brain, which fires up when there's something to worry about, actually calms down during hypnosis. A second change was observed in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain where you plan things and carry out routines, and the insula, a part of the brain that helps regulate body functions. These two parts of the brain began syncing up in their connectivity, like altering blood pressure and heart rate. This suggests that during hypnosis, the brain intensifies its connection to the body. We can see evidence of this when the hypnotized individual experiences a slower heart rate and rhythmic breathing with a likely corresponding decrease in blood pressure. At the same time, other areas of the brain become less connected during hypnosis. The researchers saw more of a disconnect between the same region of planning and routines, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, and a part of the brain characterized by self-reflection. In hypnosis, people tend to do things without reflection. As a result, people will sometimes do embarrassing or silly things in staged hypnosis shows. They're not thinking about it. They're just doing it. And that's what allows us to bypass that critical mind that would otherwise come up with a rationalization to comport with our programming. Okay, so now we know. Now we know what's going on physiologically. All right? And we can prove it. And we can experiment. And we can replicate it. And we can measure it, and so the evidence-based community is opening up. There are complementary and alternative medicine departments in a growing number of hospitals.
Yep, we have one.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm. So, at UCLA and other teaching hospitals, there's a department called psychoneuroimmunology. It's mind, body, spirit with a Western spin, an allopathic representation of mind, body, spirit. We're all connected.
We're all connected.
Deepak in quantum healing, he talks about the intelligence of our organs. They speak together. You can synthesize a chemical that replicates our neurochemistry in the lab, but there are side effects and inefficacy because it lacks the intelligence of our organic chemistry. Right? At the same time, if you follow Bruce Lipton and epigenetics, we can modulate our own genetic expression, right? So we are so powerful. And people, Dr. Spiegel, he says, in his experimentation that 80% of people can be hypnotized and 20% can't. I say, in my experience, if you want to, you can. The people who can't, they cross their arms and they put up, I can't make you do anything that you don't want to do. But if you want to use the power of your mind and your body, if you want to use the power of hypnosis and hypnotherapy, if you have rapport with me, you trust I know what I'm talking about and I can get you there, it will work for you. And that's my experience. I read, there was a doctor, a physician in the 70s, Dr. Carl Simonton. He was a radiological oncologist, and he saw a lot of people with cancer. And he postulated this theory that these repressed, unrealized emotions from childhood are cumulative. And when they build up and the pain, the unrecognized pain from these emotional traumatic experiences gets too much, the subconscious mind perceives death as a way out of that emotional pain and will begin to modulate your immune response in a negative direction. And that allows, we all have cancer cells. And what happens is then they begin to mutate. When our immune system is not properly dealing with the cancer cells, then they mutate and become a tumor and some are more aggressive than others, but there's an emotional component to it. And that's what I do. I help people get down to the emotional component of their dis-ease, whether, and I find it fascinating that no one has ever asked this person who's had fibromyalgia for 9 years, what was going on in your life when it started? No one ever asked her that. Well, she had this tough exterior, had been in the military, and she's an executive in the man's world, and she's really tough, but inside she was an emotional marshmallow. And when she went through a bitter divorce with custody, she could take the physical pain, but the emotional pain she somatized right into her body. And it became a bucket full of symptoms that allopathic medicine said, well, these are the symptoms that you have. And it's this collection of symptoms points to this autoimmune disease, and all we can do is manage your pain. So she was on opioids for 8 years.
Right. And and especially with fibromyalgia, it's something they don't understand, and they don't have any real way to cure it or manage it very well.
Because they don't understand that there's an emotional underpinning to it. So I'm not a doctor, and I respect everyone in their training and everything else. I have my body of research and understanding. I follow evidence-based practitioners, and I believe in the power of the mind. So you, back to your question. You just didn't wake up one day and say, I want to become a hypnotherapist.
Except you did.
I did, but I was divinely guided. So here's the woo-woo part, because I have crystals and I meditate, and there's a big spiritual component to my transformation. And I saw this psychic in Los Angeles when I was down there, and she taught me about the archangels. And one day I was making this transition, and I'm like, I just read The Power of Intention. I just saw Wayne Dyer speak, and I came home and I wrote a letter to Archangel Michael. Dear Archangel Michael, Norman Plotkin here. I have these mad skills. I'm so grateful to God for all of these skills that I've had. People have paid me millions of dollars, but I want to put myself into the service of others, but don't know how. Can you please help direct me to put myself into the service of others? Sincerely, Norman Plotkin. And I went in the backyard and I lit it on fire, and I gave it to the universe. And then I went into my house, and I went into my darkened bedroom, and I closed the door, and I did japa meditation for 20 minutes. Namanarayana, 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 out loud. My chest was just resonating, and I was vibrating my whole body. And in the 5 minutes cool down period after that, the most amazing energetic presence came down the hall through the closed door and stood right next to me, and I was afraid. And I was made to know not to be afraid. And I was moved. And afterwards, and then as quickly as it appeared, it was gone. And I'm like opening my eyes, like, And I called my psychic friend, Laura, what was that? She goes, wait, you wrote a letter, Archangel Michael. You did japa meditation, and then Archangel Michael shows up and you don't know who it is?
Shocker.
So I was divinely guided. And within a week, I was divinely guided to this school of hypnotherapy. So you see what I mean? It's like there are no
coincidences.
So I thank God. The cancer, I wanted to call my first book The Unwrapped Gift. Like my brother's death that guided me away from climbing telephone poles and into college, the cancer was an unwrapped gift. But my publisher said, Norm, cancer probably was a gift for you, but how long did it take you to figure that out? And I'm like, yeah, it was a few years. She said, you got to meet people where they are, and they're not, when you're in the middle of it, they're not thinking it's a gift.
Yeah, that's probably very true. So real quickly, because we do have to wrap up. You have a couple of things. You have 2 books you mentioned. One of them you just mentioned now, The Unwrapped. I almost called it The Unwrapped Gift.
It's called Take Charge of Your Cancer, the 7 Proven Steps to Healing and Recovery. I didn't make these 7 steps up, but it turns out that the body of research around people who have survived cancer point to about 10 different things. I chose the 7 things that I stumbled on myself, and I help people empower themselves to do something besides get a second opinion or show up to your. So Take Charge of Your Cancer. It's targeted at men. It's targeted at men who don't necessarily go to the doctor like women do. You have your yearly exam, and men don't go until things are really
until they need to.
Yeah. And then
the second book is Master Your Mind, Master Your Life.
That's right. And it's the history and science and what's going on and the application of hypnosis and hypnotherapy. Straight scoop. it's not a big volume. It's a way to overcome your preconceived notions and learn how to use it for yourself.
Okay. And they're available on your website and also on Amazon?
Yes.
Okay. And your website is?
www.normanplotkin.com, NORMANPLOTKIN.com.
Wonderful. Now, I know there's one thing we really didn't get a chance to talk about, but I know this is part of your gift, and I'd love to have you back to talk more about this. We're going to be talking a little bit about chakras, specifically the throat chakra, obviously with your thyroid cancer. And so you do have a lovely gift for everyone. So could you please tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the gift is a recording of a chakra balancing it's a guided meditation to balance your chakras. Chakras are energy wheels within the body, and when they're balanced, you are in alignment, and when they're imbalanced, you're out of alignment. And so I'll run through them very quickly. The root chakra is red, and it's the base of the spine, and it's about security. The sacral chakra is orange, and it's about your creativity and sexuality. The solar plexus chakra is yellow, and it's about your personal power. The green heart chakra is about relationships. The light blue throat chakra is about your voice, authentic voice in the world. Your third eye chakra is between your eyebrows, and it's your connection and intuition and your gut feelings. And it is dark blue, and the crown chakra is at the top of your head or just above, and it's about your connection to spirit and the divine, and it is violet. And much like qi, in traditional Chinese medicine, the chakras give life to prana, and that's your life force. And so we can balance them on a daily basis. And when we do, and we practice balancing our chakras, we can become attuned to when they're out of balance, and when, and to which ones are, and how we feel when that's the case. It's super important. We're moving from Pisces to Aquarius, from Newtonian mechanics and materialism to energy in the quantum field. Energy and emotional intelligence is super important right now. So anyway, I could go on, obviously, put a nickel in me, and I keep going. Maybe I can come back, and I'll have belt and suspenders with my internet.
Absolutely. I really would love to have you come back and talk to us about more about chakras, because I think the energy piece, and it's one of those things that people, like I had mentioned earlier, I know about, I don't know enough about. And myself, if I'm exploring something, I think it's important to share with the world. So Norman, thank you so much for joining us today, for explaining hypnotherapy to us, and the importance, and really how that connection to yourself and your past really can change your life. And that's truly what we're here to do, is to help people to think, and to do things differently, to help them to create that lifestyle, that healthy, happy lifestyle that they are looking for. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having me, Denise.
Absolutely. Everyone, thank you for joining us today on the Wonder Series. We're here every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. So we will see you next week. Till then, I'll leave you with this: healthy living, happy life.